The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is known for having one of the longer Zelda speedruns, with the world record for the any percent speedrun clocking out at just under 4 hours. And as you can imagine, other runs like 100% would only take longer. But there is another leaderboard for Skyward Sword HD that is full of much shorter speedruns. These short speedruns are small portions of the game, usually called individual levels, or ILs for short. There are a grand total of 25 IL speedruns. These include bosses, dungeons, silent realms, and even bug catching for some reason. And I am here to gather them all. This is the story of how I managed to take all 25 speedrun world records on this leaderboard. First on the list, the bosses. I had the least trouble with this category. It only took a few weekends to get the world records of all the bosses, so we can go through this one pretty quickly. All the imprisoned fights took the least amount of attempts. You just gotta quickly cut off his toes, and then find ways to stab his stake into his forehead. Then Koloktos was the first boss with a bunch of RNG, but after a few mistakes and an accidental one-hit cage break, I was able to get a really good time. Tantalus was the worst boss of all. The entire fight is RNG. Where the tentacles spawn, where Tantalus spawns, what attacks Tantalus will do, it's all just a perpetual RNG machine. Oh, and it's not just all the things I mentioned that are RNG, but also hitboxes. Spoiler alert, but I lost 2 seconds in my sandship world record because this tentacle decided he didn't want to die yet. And here for the boss world record, Tantalus Tentacle, which I just caught off, still has collision and flopped around and blocked my arrow shot. If you didn't think that was possible, neither did anyone else. So after several hours of failed attempts and RNG losses, I beat that boss in a time that no one will ever beat. I think. For the Ghirahim fights, I used a strategy where I centered the Joy-Cons to the side, so that when I was holding my Joy-Cons straight forward, my sword was to the side and guiding Ghirahim's hand over. I combined that with a spin attack cancel, shaking the right Joy-Con to do a slash, and then the left Joy-Con to interrupt it with a spin attack to do as much damage as possible. And for the third Ghirahim fight, I used lame strats. I was pausing over and over again, switching between motion controls and button controls to beat him as fast and easily as possible. I know. I'm sorry, okay? I need to get the world record. Gosh! Molgera is easily one of the most fun bosses. You shoot him with a slingshot and immediately interrupt it with slashing your sword. Rinse and repeat over and over again until you put him against the wall and stab him in the eyeball 4 times. The Demise fight is easily the most fun. Wait, I called Molgera the most fun fight. Demise is actually the most fun. It's just slash heaven. Well, not so much for him, but anyways. I use a difficult strategy that I believe is partially RNG and partially skillful. By not collecting the lightning, if the RNG is right and you've been fast enough knocking down Demise, he will grab the lightning without waiting, and you'll be able to get him down just a little bit faster. Caldera, no one likes this boss. I just chuck some bombs, cut him in the eyes. All speedrunners hate him. And for good reason. The Horde fight was difficult, but didn't take very long somehow. I already held the world records of about half of these bosses because they have yet to be beaten. It's time to mark bosses off the list. Now, it was on to silent realms. First up was the Farore Silent Realm, which I already had the world record to once. However, I was struggling to get a good time for ages. Now you may be wondering, if you already had the world record to this speedrun and you can't even get it now, how in the world are you supposed to get the other 3? Content armor. The funniest part about the Farore Silent Realm is that I got one run that had a fantastic start and then just started messing up left and right. I was so flabbergasted that I had completely thought I'd invented a new route. Next was the Nayru Silent Realm. This one took forever mainly because of one part of the speedrun. This tier jump is a lot harder than it looks. Too far to the left, now go to the right. Too far to the right, now go to the right. Too far forward, go a little back. Too far back, go a little forward. Okay, now you got oops, waking water, Harmon, go home. This run basically consisted of, can I get the tier jump? No. Can I get the tier jump? No. Can I get the tier jump? Yes. Can I finish the run? Nerves. You know what the craziest part of this whole thing is? All of the world records that I'm trying to beat, aside from the occasional few, are done by one man. Out of nowhere, Flo just came in with Skyward Sword HD speedrunning and started taking all the individual level world records. He's even second place in the world in the any percent category with a sub 4 time. Harp world record? Also his. And what's even crazier than that is that he has all of these Skyward Sword HD world records and has the audacity to claim that he sucks at this game.
Like, what? How is this not good? Flo, if you're watching this, I want you to know that you are a wonderful Skyward Sword speedrunner. Oh, and also, I took the Lanayru Silent Realm world record from you. Elden. It was at this point that I started to become pretty confident in my ability to take the world records. Dungeons were still looming on the horizon like an Elden Ring boss on the top of the hill, but for the Silent Realms at least, I knew I could do this. The Elden one surprisingly wasn't that bad. It took a couple hours, but I used a strategy that the world record didn't use, and I've already become kind of accustomed to Silent Realm movement. You know what? I kinda get this. Anyways, I don't really have much to say on the Elden Silent Realm now. It's long. I got the world record now. We can move on. The Goddess's Silent Realm, yeah, maybe we could just not talk about this one. This Silent Realm was like the direct opposite of Elden. This Silent Realm felt really cramped as opposed to the Elden Silent Realm, which just kind of felt wide open and free. It also had the most consecutive difficult techniques throughout the run. There's climbing on those boards. Quickly after that, you have a side hop to get a tier, but you have to void out and not land on the board. And then, at the very end of the Silent Realm, you have the dumbest jump in all the Silent Realms. If the Lanayru Silent Realm tier jump was considered hard, this is 10 times worse. Attempt after attempt after attempt. Eventually, I got a run that just winged it for the gate jump, and I got it. My heartbeat was through the roof, and I got the world record. And of course, sub 2 minutes was possible, just like Flo said. It's time to write Silent Realms off the list. And now, the event you've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, bug catching. No one cares. I was pretty confident that I could get the advanced or whatever it's called bug catching thing, the second one. And I was kinda worried for the beginner. But things don't always go as planned, because the bug level 1 actually went kinda fast. It was not very fun to grind at all, but it was very satisfying to pull off. And that's exactly how the second one went. Not fun to grind, very satisfying to pull off. Except it's much, much worse. This had much more RNG to it, because all the bugs are RNG. And this spiderweb is RNG, I don't care what you say. None of you care about bug catching, and neither do I. I got the world records, can we please move on and get that off the list?
First up for the dungeons, Skyview Temple. This was easily the most difficult dungeon of them all. It wasn't supposed to be. I was worried about Lanayru mining facility, Skykeep too. But sometimes life has a funny way of working. And apparently what was found funny this time was 40 plus hours of attempts. In fact, it's so bad I even created an entire video ranting about this dungeon alone. I'll explain what happened real quick. Okay, you got that? Cool, let's move on to Earth Temple. Earth Temple honestly wasn't that bad. It took a little bit, but I got the world record fairly fast, honestly. And then Flo took the world record a few days later. And then I took the world record right back a few more days later. That was quick and anticlimactic, but you know what's not anticlimactic? The worst dungeon in all of Skyward Sword. Lanayru mining facility. This dungeon is made to mess you up. The dungeon feels cramped, there's sand everywhere, there's precise beetle management, there are precise slingshot shots, there are some RNG elements to it. And what in the world is up with these platforms? I always lose time to these. This was the one world record that I was never able to get. A year or two ago, when I was doing all the other dungeons, I attempted this one, and I didn't come close. The moment I set out on this mission to grab all the world records, I've been paranoid about this dungeon the entire time. However, I did realize there were 2 big time saves that could grant me the lead I needed to beat Flo, the current world record holder of this dungeon with near perfect movement the entire time. There's a difficult glitch about 7 minutes into the run where you jump on this minecart and ride across, and I made it harder. You see, instead of just jumping onto the minecart and staying put until you arrive at your destination, input a direction on the control stick and instantly slip off, if you have a pretty precise angle and position and hold target right, you will pop on top of the minecart. Why is this important? Because you can move around and not slip off. So now all I need to do is orientate myself diagonally upright, and I can do a jump slash to make it onto this spinning platform and save 9 seconds. On top of that, Flo didn't have the greatest Molgera fight, and because I had just gotten the world record a few weeks ago, I had the advantage. So after hundreds of resets and adapting to the entire dungeon, it was time to do this. I developed a strat in the main room that was slightly faster than everyone else's, doing a spin attack here with precise stamina management. Then for this precise slingshot shot, it was way easier than in Skyview. This one had an actual setup that I found to be 90% consistent. And all I needed to do was have a good brake slide, and the run was on. This was easily the dumbest room in the entire dungeon. You have to brake slide, then blow the sand off of this crystal, which shoots a little lobster guy at random, which can lose or save 2 seconds. Then you have spinning platform management, getting past this gate, and messing with this BMOS. But once I make it past this room, I'm usually good until the minecart section. I've practiced a lot and found my own setup for it, and of course this was the run. I got it. But this upcoming room was the second most annoying. It has the most platform management of the entire dungeon, and of course, I lost like 3 seconds or something dumb on it. This is where I should have saved at least 2 seconds. Instead, I ended up losing 2 seconds. But I finished the dungeon 6 seconds ahead of world record. Let's move on to Ancient Cistern. This one was really weird. It was the second easiest, just behind Earth Temple. I expected it to be difficult because there was a lot of water movement. I love the water movement in this game more than any other Zelda game, but it can still be really annoying to try to go fast with it. But I got the hang of it pretty fast, and there weren't that many difficult tricks. It's mainly just the entrance animation transfer glitch 6.5 minutes into the run. Oh yeah, and RNG Stallmaster, Koloktos too. But aside from that, it wasn't that bad. The movement was pretty consistent, there weren't any difficult tricks in between all that stuff. I found a random 3 or 4 second time save over Flo's run by just being half a second faster with my item management on the first run into the basement. I have no clue how I got this time save, but it happened every single run, so that's nice, I guess. My water movement was terrible, but I somehow finished like 0.9 seconds faster than Flo. It's a world record, I guess, yippee. Now, let's talk about Sandship. Why are desert dungeons always so hard? This dungeon was basically 3 things, just like Ancient Cistern, but you really stretched it out. 1. Will Skirvo give you RNG? Nope. 2. Will Tentalus give you good RNG? Nope. 3. Can you hit your shots? Okay, I'll admit. Aiming with the bow is definitely a Krill issue, or a Hawkeye maneuver, but there are some really annoying shots. You know what? All of them are annoying. This shot can randomly miss, this shot was annoying for ages, this shot I had to find a setup for, and this room is the dumbest in the dungeon. You have to kill 4 BMOs,
and shoot a switch. And 1 arrow shot equals 1 second time loss. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but that might as well be true. If you manage to get Dream RNG for Skirvo and turn on your aim assist to 100% and manage to make it all the way to Tantalus, the boss can just straight up tell you no. Because it's RNG when Tantalus will come out of the water to face you. And if your name is Cathaldo, the answer is 13 seconds of time loss. I had to find a new strategy. I started remembering the Tantalus boss IL. One of the strategies is that after you cut off all of Tantalus' tentacles, you would jump into the water. Now, this doesn't sound useful at all. Jumping into the water freezes the in-game timer, while the rest of the world will go. And because this is RTA, jumping in the water wouldn't save you time. The timer's still ticking. Except there's another part to jumping in the water that I only realized towards the end of my sandship stay. The moment you respawn from voiding out, Tantalus is forced to come out of the water. Meaning that if you jump into the water, the moment you've hit the 4th tentacle, you can get Tantalus up and ready to hit even faster than if you got perfect RNG. So, you know the pattern by now, you know what's gonna happen. I got meh RNG, ended up playing the best I ever had, and if you remember what I said earlier about that whole spoiler thing, hitboxes don't want to work, so that's a free 2-second time loss. And yes, it did prevent me from getting sub 1630. I checked it, and it's true. But at least that's an 8 or 9 second world record that Flo will beat by tomorrow.
For Fire Sanctuary, I decided to do things a little differently. I decided to practice every bit of the dungeon, divided into sections between autosave points. And I ended up in the first room for over an hour. But of course, practice pays off. Usually when I exit this room, I start off a second ahead of Flo. Fire Sanctuary was oddly similar to Sandship. There were quite a few RNG elements that could make or break your speedrun, like the Centipede boss, and Ghirahim too. The Lizalfos could also be slightly faster if they have good RNG, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But just like Sandship, it is a very long dungeon, and the movement is also a lot of fun. The worst part of this dungeon was most likely the fire hands. Finding a good setup to hit these guys with the water is oddly difficult, but after the fire hands, make my way down back to some more Lizalfos, climb this very irritating spiral staircase, these keys are super annoying, and then fight the centipede. This is usually the "no, your speedrun fails now" part of the dungeon. But if I'm able to conquer the centipede with good or decent RNG, I grab the boss key and blow myself up to save a few seconds over Flo running down and hitting the switch. Then I just gotta hope for good Ghirahim 2 RNG, and that is Fire Sanctuary down. Skykeep was probably the most difficult dungeon in terms of tricks that I had to take. You have the Skykeep room, which is super cramped, and has that vine shot, the little lava pup shot, dealing with these platforms with the gust bellows, avoiding this autosave, and getting to the Lanayru mining facility room, perform an entrance animation transfer, followed up by several arrow shots through this barbed wire. You have claw shot vine clipping. This pirate fortress room is also quite cramped and annoying to maneuver around. And I absolutely despise the Ancient Cistern's basement room. Being the fastest sniper in town is a lot harder than it looks. And then you have to deal with the Stallmaster boss, with all of these bokoblins following you around. But if Stallmaster gives you the A-OK, you beat Skykeep faster than Flo. And with that, all of the dungeons have been beaten in world record time. Or at least, they probably should have. Since the editing of this video, I have posted my world record for Skyview Dungeon, which Flo has managed to beat. So, I had to go hunt that down and beat our time by a ridiculously small amount of time. But that's not the only world record I've had to take back since everything I've shown you. I've had to take back the world records for Koloktos and unfortunately Tantalus and more. Flo recently took the world record for the any percent speedrun, beating Gymnast 86, whose run was near perfection already. Flo is a very talented Skyward Sword HD speedrunner. I admire the amount of work he's put into this game to challenge me and to take even the any percent world record for himself, and several individual level world records along the way. I am proud to call Flo my rival. We'll see if I can catch up to him in the any percent category, or if I've had my fill of speedrunning for now. But with that, I hope you all have enjoyed this journey as much as I have. Please go subscribe to Flo. His runs are insane. And if you've liked any of the individual level world records that I've posted, you're going to like his as well. I'll send a link to his channel in the description. Thus marks the end of how I got every speedrun world record on this leaderboard, and could have sparked the start of a legendary rivalry. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.